Her expertise and innovative approaches make her an invaluable contributor to our field. And without further ado, please help me welcome the incredibly talented, my partner in crime, Dr. Oya Topçuoğlu Judd.
Can everybody hear me fine from here? Excellent. Please tell me if I get too loud. I tend to project a little too loudly, so I can tone it down a little bit. All right. Welcome, everybody. I would like to very quickly thank the organizers of both the LRC Speaker Series, so Angelica, thank you, and also the organizers of SILC, the conference, for inviting me here. It is really a pleasure to talk to the whole group of you, and hopefully you'll find my talk and the examples that I'm going to show you from the work that we've done at Northwestern useful for your own classes, and you will walk away with things that you can just take and adapt to your own classes immediately. So that's my goal. All right, so there we go. As instructors of less commonly and least commonly taught languages, we frequently face two major challenges: recruiting students and sourcing high-quality, engaging teaching materials that transcend the limitations of traditional textbooks and rely on technology-mediated, multimodal language learning practices and methodology. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We are all suffering from the same problems. Unfortunately, I have not yet discovered the magic formula that will have students come running to our classes, but I know from experience that collaboration is vital when it comes to sourcing, designing, and developing high-quality and engaging teaching materials in LCTLs, and especially in single-instructor LCTL programs. Working together with colleagues, leveraging shared resources, and pooling expertise can significantly enhance the quality and impact of language instruction, both for students and instructors. So today I want to tell you how we have addressed this issue at Northwestern's Turkish program by collaborating across languages and across institutions, and how we developed a series of innovative courses that integrate authentic media and cultural content to enhance language learning and cultural competence in our students. I'll present two courses. Our first year elementary Turkish course, Elementary Turkish through TV Shows, and Istanbul, Gateway Between the East and the West, which is the capstone course of our two-year Turkish program. I'll walk you through our process to develop these courses and show you examples from our teaching materials that I hope you can adopt to your own courses. But before I get into the details of the courses themselves, I want to tell you how we got here in the first place, how I got here in the first place, and really emphasize the importance of collaboration in developing sustainable language programs. If you looked at my bio before you came here, you'll have seen that I was actually trained as an archaeologist. So I've come into language instruction somewhat unconventionally, but luckily, both for me and for my students, I started my journey as a language instructor with the help of the University of Chicago Language Center and the inimitable Kathy Bauman there, which is truly one of the best resources out there for LCTL instructors. If you're not on their radar yet, get on there right now. So between 2018 and 2021, I was part of what used to be called CLC's Mellon Collaborative Partners in the Less Commonly Taught Languages Partnership Project. It is now called Transforming Language Instruction. And everything that I will show you in this talk today is a result of the training I received there directly or indirectly. And that's also, like Banu said, where I met her, my indefatigable collaborator and partner in crime of 6 years. So during our CLC partnership, Banu and I completed workshops on ACFL OPI assessment, test design, and curriculum design and development and design. We designed and developed a proficiency exam for end of second year Turkish, and fully redesigned our second-year curricula, both at Cornell and Northwestern, to align our teaching and our materials with the proficiency outcomes that we had set up for our students. Along the way, we also presented our joint work at multiple conferences and workshops. The amount of work we were able to accomplish while teaching full-time and the quality and efficacy of the teaching materials we created together are a real testament to the importance of collaboration, especially in single instructor programs. So, all this pedagogical training and curriculum development really showed us that the best way for our small language programs to thrive in the long run and to draw today's goal-oriented Gen Z students is to offer a proficiency-oriented curriculum with well-designed, technology-mediated, multimodal courses that present engaging content that is relevant to our students' lives and identities. With this principle in mind, my colleagues and I embarked on an innovative multi-language curriculum development project at Northwestern's Middle East and North African Languages program. This collaborative project, which took a holistic approach to teaching language and culture, was made possible by the alumni of Northwestern University Curriculum Innovation Grant, which we received in spring 2020 and resulted in the development of 3 brand new sister courses in Turkish, Arabic, and Hebrew, based on a shared pedagogical model. When we first decided to move forward with this project, we wanted to develop courses on a shared topic so that we could collaborate fully across 3 languages. So we landed on cities as entities that represent both the languages and the cultures that we teach. We are natives of Istanbul, Cairo, and Jerusalem, respectively. So focusing on these cities was a no-brainer. These cities are central to the diversity of their communities and the identity of each country. So the course content allows students to explore and compare broader cultural, political, and social issues within the context of these cities in the target language. I really want to emphasize that this was truly a team effort, and I'd like to recognize everyone involved. So besides me, the project team included Ragi Mikhail, Associate Professor of Instruction in Arabic, Hannah Zucker-Seltzer, Associate Professor of Instruction in Hebrew, Franziska Lies, the Director of the Middle East and North African Languages Program and Professor of German, and Matthew Taylor, Director of Northwestern's Media and Design Studio. Each instructor also had a student assistant who was either a native speaker of their language or at an advanced level of proficiency, who helped with creating content and preparing the teaching materials. We published our work in this volume last year, so if you'd like to know more about all 3 courses than what I will tell you today, please get your hands on this book. Now, let's turn to the course Istanbul, Gateway Between the East and the West. The Turkish program at Northwestern offers 2 years of language courses, and this capstone course is placed at the end of the 2nd year curriculum and is designed at the intermediate mid to intermediate high level on the ACTFL scale. As we're on the quarter system at Northwestern, the content is covered in 10 weeks with 2 80-minute synchronous class meetings a week. Students do additional work before and after each class. At the end of the course, students reported having spent 5 to 6 hours a week on average working with the material outside of class time. Taking this class at the tail end of the 2-year Turkish sequence also prepares our students for their study abroad experience by familiarizing them with different aspects of life in modern Istanbul, as a number of our students spend the summer at the Turkish Language and Culture program at Boğaziçi University. When designing the course and developing the teaching materials, we followed 6 guiding principles of curriculum design. You can see them here. We relied on the ACTFL can-do statements as a start to identify our outcomes for each unit. We also added our own can-do statements in many places when the ACTFL statements were too limited in scope. You can see here that these can-do statements are clearly presented to the students at the beginning of each chapter to give them a clear idea of the learning objectives and outcomes, or in other words, what is expected of them and what they can realistically expect to do in each chapter. For every task that we designed for this course, we focused on functional language use. All tasks, regardless of skill emphasized, result in meaningful language use. Students are given multiple opportunities to communicate in the target language in every class meeting, while working with proficiency-oriented real-world tasks. We also try to design all course materials and activities to be relevant to our students' lives needs and interest as much as possible so they would stay engaged. Both the course materials and the structure of the class meetings are geared towards maximizing in-class time. Instruction focuses on task-based learning through carefully scaffolded activities, and I'll show you some examples. The face-to-face class time is reserved for paired activities and group discussions, where students communicate with the language, interact, and collaborate. The majority of the language produced in class is by the students. The instructor plays a minimal role by asking comprehension questions and by managing group discussions. Most individual work takes place outside of the classroom. Most reading and listening tasks are done outside of class, giving the students with different learning styles the flexibility to work at their own pace. This at-home work also prepares students for in-class activities on the following day, which are capped by a post-face-to-face writing or listening activity on a related topic to close the loop. One of our most important goals in designing these courses was to use authentic teaching materials that expose students to the language they will encounter in real life and that are suited to their needs and interests. Almost everything outside of the introductory chapter is authentic materials. To support a flexible course structure, we designed more material than necessary in each chapter so that we have rich enough content to use for diverse student populations. We can pick and choose what to cover depending on the group in our class in a given year and assign different activities to students at different skill levels. We don't have, for instance, a separate heritage track. So sometimes we have heritage speakers with new learners in the same classroom. The course is built around a variety of formative assessments in the form of tasks that show students what they can and cannot do and inform the instructor, that would be me, about each student's progress on a daily basis. Reading and listening tasks are supported by vocabulary activities, mind maps, grammar review activities using graphic organizers, comprehension checks in the form of multiple choice, true, false, and open-ended short answer questions, and summary activities, as well as related speaking and writing tasks that complement the content, vocabulary, and grammar. We use completion of pre-face-to-face work, engagement in in-class activities, and completion of tasks as informal assessments. There are no midterm or final exams, but at the end of each chapter, students are assessed with a chapter quiz that tests both content and vocabulary acquisition and use. Students also complete a final project at the end of the quarter consisting of an oral presentation and a collaborative written portion. And I'll show you examples of that as well. Finally, I should mention our focus on strategic use of technology and the pivot to creating an entirely digital course for remote teaching under the pandemic conditions. The first time I taught this was spring 2020. So we had to be fully remote and fully online. But we continue to harness this technology in in-person instruction now that we're teaching in the classroom. So to streamline the presentation of the material, everything is presented digitally on Canvas, that's our LMS at Northwestern, with the help of external tools like Google Docs, Jamboard, Quizlet, and Hypothesis. And here you can see some actual examples where students use Jamboard to combine their notes in class from work that they had done at home. And I'll show you here the collaborative annotation tool, Hypothesis, when they were reading a short story. And this was a short story that we had not edited at all. We did just divide it up across 3 days. And they worked on it together. And you can see they even replied to one another in some places. The quote-unquote course pack exists as a digital textbook in the form of a downloadable PDF reader that students can print and mark if they want to. We envisioned this PDF reader to be the main course pack for teaching in person, where most tasks can also be completed with pen and paper in a physical classroom setting. And some of the current technological components, such as Quizlet decks and Canvas comprehension quizzes, still accompany it. They are not really using Jamboard anymore because they are in the classroom together, so they'll just put their heads together and work on something in real time. This year, we've also worked on transferring all of this material for the course onto an external website and take it out of Canvas, and also integrate the H5P platform for the tasks to make the material more interactive and flexible for the students. So one of our biggest challenges in designing these courses, the city courses, was choosing the content. Where do you even start? Our main goal was to create engaging content. And with that in mind, we designed an introductory chapter where students work on the city of Evanston, where Northwestern is located, and also on their own hometown, to review and expand vocabulary related to a city, its history, its culture, if they've never done content like this in the target language. This is the first week where they basically warm up to the idea of talking just about a city for the next 9 weeks. The first chapter, following the introduction, places Istanbul in a geographical and historical context. Chapter 4 introduce students to the sites, landmarks, and monuments in the city, explore how the city and its inhabitants are portrayed in literature, introduce students to the intricacies of daily life in the city, and delve into contemporary social, economic, political, and environmental issues. All of this in the target language. So as I've already highlighted multiple times, using authentic and diverse materials was one of our main goals, as they present richer cultural and situational references, richer language, reflecting real-life situations in a target language, in a target culture, and also provide an extra necessary challenge for students in our carefully scaffolded classroom environments. We also wanted to present various multimedia to accommodate differentiated learning. So we brought in texts, videos, and images from a variety of sources, from Wikipedia to YouTube, to Twitter, to newspapers, actual literary works, academic publications, all of which are accompanied by realia such as transit maps, infographics, brochures, historical maps, this and that. Now, that was the process of getting there. I now want to walk you briefly through one of the chapters so you can see how we put all of this into practice. I'll show you sections of the final chapter where students learn about transportation in Istanbul, explore different neighborhoods in the city and their distinct characters, and work with video testimonials of real inhabitants of the city to understand what everyday life in Istanbul is like. So in Unit 1, Getting Around Istanbul, students read about various transportation options in the city, how they work, and where in the city they go. This reading is followed by a brief comprehension quiz. Here we also focus on the iconic ferries that really define the character of Istanbul. Working in pairs, students comb through a Twitter thread, I should call this an X thread now, where Istanbulites, real Istanbulites, express their opinions about the traditional and new ferry designs. This was a huge issue when the new ferries came out. People really complained about the ugly design. That's the ugly design. I was born and raised in Istanbul. I have very strong opinions about these things. And they summarize what they find out from the thread and express their own opinion based on the images and the tweets that they work on. And here on the side, you can see some of the work that they've done. Then they watch a brief video introducing Istanbul Cart. It's the transit card that you use to get around the city, how to get a card, and where you can use it. After answering comprehension questions about the video, you see over there, and filling in the blanks in a short text with information recycled from the video, they work in pairs once again, where each student receives a unique route with transportation options to get to the same place in the city. They each describe the route to their partners, so only one person sees what's in front of them. And then together they decide on the option they prefer and then explain why. These are very carefully chosen routes, by yours truly. One is a land route. It takes forever. There's traffic. These are all things that they learn, so they should be able to express these. The other one is the sea route. You take the ferry. The views are beautiful. It's quick, whatever. I'm telling you, strong opinions here. Unit 2, Istanbul's neighborhoods. Students read profiles of 5 distinct neighborhoods in the city, including their location, transportation options, types of homes and businesses, amenities, and residents who live in these places. After doing a brief comprehension quiz again, they're given profiles, completely made up profiles, of 4 different people, and are asked to speculate on which neighborhoods they would choose to live in Istanbul and why. So we have an expat businesswoman, we have an architect with a family and small children, we have a completely broke college student, just you name it. And this unit ends with the students expressing their own preferences about what they look for in a neighborhood and where in Istanbul they would like to live themselves based on these things that they've seen. In the final unit of this chapter, living in the city, we begin with talking about the advantages and disadvantages of living in big cities versus small towns. And students give examples from their hometowns. Then each student is assigned one of the 3 video testimonials that you see here by real residents of Istanbul: a white-collar finance worker, a blue-collar auto technician, and a university student. After watching the videos and taking notes at home, they answer questions about their video. The following day in class, they're paired with another student who watched the same video. They combine their notes and they present them to the rest of class, because there will only be, this is a small class. The first time we did this, there were 6 students, 3 videos. It was perfect. Each pair ended up watching the same thing. They got together. The others had no idea what videos were happening here. So the remaining students have to take notes as they're listening to this and then ask questions in preparation for the next task. The unit concludes with a group summary and discussion of all 3 videos by all the students, where they use the notes they took during their oral presentations. The course ends with a final assessment in the form of an individual project consisting of 3 parts. Throughout the quarter, students are asked to read a work of fiction set in Istanbul from a curated list of titles in English available at the university library. I already put them through hell in this class. I'm not going to ask them to read a novel in Turkish on top of everything. So this part they do in English. The list includes both works by Turkish authors in translation and those by foreign authors. We make sure to provide a variety of genres, ranging from historical fiction to detective novels and contemporary fiction, to allow students to select a book that keeps them engaged based on their personal interests. On the last day of class, they each do an oral presentation in Turkish and submit a written assignment, also in Turkish, where they summarize the story and its primary characters. They discuss their opinion of the book. I liked it, I didn't like it, why not? And describe what they learned from the story about Istanbul. Does it overlap with the impression that they had in their heads after doing this class? What's going on? As an additional challenge, I'm telling you, I put them through hell, but they loved it. They're asked to produce a story map using either Google Maps or StoryMap.js, developed by Northwestern's Night Lab, where they plot all the locations in Istanbul that are mentioned in the book that they read. So they have to take notes constantly as they're reading this novel throughout the quarter, and briefly describe how the locations relate to the story. So they will just, drop a pin there in a neighborhood and say, the protagonist was born in this neighborhood. Very simple, but it keeps them engaged, and they also learn their way around the city. It allows them to visualize the city as a whole and gain more insights into particular locations. Even though students initially reacted to the idea of having to read an additional book, the final project quickly became one of their favorite parts of the class. I will show you one, and I've never seen a student project this good before. just walk you through this because I am amazed every time. Okay. This is the book by Elif Shafak that the student read. This is StoryMap.js. If you don't know about it, come find me. It's the most amazing thing ever. It's free. It's on the web. You can use it in so many different ways. I'll tell you all about it. I'm a big advocate of using this for class. This is how she started. That's the author, little information about her, all of this in Turkish. Oh no, excuse me, okay, now I have my place. She found the main street where the story takes place, found a YouTube video that actually walks you through that street, put it up there, and described the neighborhood and the street. The whole book is set in one building. It's people who live in the different apartments in that building. This is not that building, but she found a building of the same architectural style from Istanbul, put the picture there, and described the building from what she learned in the book. It's set in 1920s Istanbul. She gives me historical context. I cannot tell you how blown away I was when I received this. And then she starts telling us about every apartment in the building and the characters who live there. All of these photos are just from the internet. She found things that matched what she read. Number two, oh, sorry, the image there is broken. This is the Armenian Catholic cemetery in Istanbul. One of the characters was Armenian, so there is something related to cemetery. She just put it there. Geographical context for me. Number three, hairdresser and his wife live there. Hair salon. Number four, there's somebody who's agoraphobic. It goes on and on and on. It's incredible. Okay, let's go back to the actual presentation. Now, feedback from the students at the end of the quarter was overwhelmingly positive. You can see here parts of the student evaluations. In addition to the student evaluations collected by the university, we also did a more focused anonymous survey ourselves about the students' individual learning experiences and the instructional materials. Student answers show that the course content, the types of tasks they worked on in and outside of class, and the instructional technologies used for remote teaching at the time were all very well received. And you can read all the praise here. So that's one class. Now I'm going to move on to something completely different. Once we finished revising the second-year curriculum, tested it out for 2 years, did this class, tested that out, we turned our attention to the first-year curriculum. There were two main factors that motivated us. The first is the textbook. When we look at textbooks currently available on the market for teaching Turkish as a foreign language, we see that they either focus too heavily on delivering grammar or don't include grammar at all. None of the texts and audios are authentic. None of them include videos, very important component of language learning. And most importantly, they present Turkish culture from a very superficial tourist viewpoint, which is common to most language textbooks, but doesn't allow learners to gain the cultural competence that they need. The second motivator, and admittedly the more powerful motivator in this case, was decreasing enrollments in first year. It became clear that interest in Turkish was dropping among the students. It was never too high anyway. I mean, you know how that goes. So we really needed to offer a first-year sequence that was attractive, engaging, we had to do something sexy, and suited to their needs and interests to draw them into the program in the first place. Once they come in, they don't want to leave. It's just getting that foot in the door. That's the important part. So the solution was to incorporate TV shows into our existing curriculum. Thanks to international sales and global viewership, Turkey is second only to the US in worldwide TV distribution, finding huge audiences in Latin America, the Middle East, Russia, China, and Korea. Turkish TV shows reach 750 million people across 152 countries. When I did this research and got these numbers, I was like, what are we even talking about? The global popularity of these TV shows is reflected in a growing interest in Turkish language and culture on social media, not in our universities, but on social media. YouTube, TikTok, people are teaching Turkish, people are learning Turkish. So it's for this reason that we decided to harness the enormous potential of popular TV shows as authentic teaching materials to reach a wider student population across the university and promote more engagement and build cultural competence in the classroom. I should stress here that using films and TV shows in language instruction is not really a novel idea. People have been doing that for a very long time. And we at Northwestern are certainly not the first Turkish program to use TV shows in this particular way. There are a small number of programs in the US, including here at Cornell with my colleague Banu, that have done this very successfully. And I'm really grateful to Banu for sharing her worksheets with me when we were first starting to work on this new class, so I could see what she had done and what worked and what did not. Read collaboration. But what I and my colleagues at these institutions have done differently than before is to take a more holistic approach to these shows, requiring students to watch every episode in its entirety rather than showing clips for specific purposes. Two people are introducing each other. 20-second clip. No, we don't do that. We do the entire thing, and I'll tell you how. And also discussing social, political, historical, and cultural themes that are covered in these shows in great detail. Very much like the Istanbul course that I just showed you, this project was also a collaboration. And as you will see from the material that we prepared, it could not have been possible without the immense time commitment and work that my Fulbright language teaching assistant last year, Selin Tanış, put in. I could not have done this on my own. It was an insane amount of time and work. Selin and I worked together on every aspect of the course, from making vocab lists to designing exercises and creating the handouts. As a first step, we decided to leverage this global popularity that I was telling you about of Turkish TV shows to actively promote our new course content and recruit students from different backgrounds. Here's what we did. Our promotional materials not only emphasize how popular Turkish TV shows are all over the world, but also appeal to different groups of students. And we have a catchphrase: who needs subtitles when you can speak the language of global entertainment? I mean, come on, what's sexier than this? Seriously. How do we appeal to different audiences? We made 6 different flyers with similar designs. That's the general one. Hispanic audiences. We have a lot of Latinx students. Arab audiences. We have a very big Middle Eastern population at the university. Indians. You can't just tell them everybody's watching these things. You have to show them specific things to actually convince them to do this. And I think this actually worked. So in terms of the content itself, one of our earliest challenges was to select which shows to work with. Our primary criteria for selection were ease of access to the content, availability of English subtitles consistently across all episodes. So you can't just have one episode on YouTube that has subtitles and then 27 that don't. Also use of modern contemporary Turkish with basic daily conversation patterns and vocabulary that's suitable for beginners, because this starts on day 1 of first-year Turkish. We also wanted to use shows that addressed important social and cultural issues in contemporary Turkey that are often missing in traditional textbooks. To work with the right shows that provided relevant and engaging content for undergrads, we actually surveyed members of the Turkish student community at Northwestern who are not only familiar with current TV productions in Turkey, but also belong to the same age group as our language students with similar sensibilities towards social justice and cultural issues. Whatever they like, their peers are going to like. It might not be what I like, although it was. So the overwhelming favorites were these 2 shows: Ethos, which depicts the current secular conservative divide and polarization in Turkey, through the eyes of diverse characters, and The Club, which focuses on the lives and struggles of non-Muslim minorities in Turkey in the 1950s. Both extremely no-no topics that were really controversial even in Turkey when these shows came out. Both shows are highly acclaimed recent productions available on Netflix with Turkish and English language options and subtitles. They're also limited series consisting of 8 to 10 episodes, which fit perfectly with our 10-week quarter. So for the first quarter of elementary level, we decided on ethos, the show on the left, for 3 reasons. The show takes place in present-day Istanbul and features contemporary vocabulary and speaking patterns that students would encounter in day-to-day interactions in the real world. It includes 9 main characters with different identities and from different socioeconomic backgrounds, representing a wide variety of groups in Turkish society who are interconnected in many ways and find ways to exist together in a divided country. Students can easily identify with one or more of these characters representing intersectional identities. The show also tackles a number of contemporary and often controversial cultural and sociopolitical issues in Turkish society that are consistently omitted from textbooks, but are very much part of Turkey's reality, including the secular religious divide, women's issues, intense sociopolitical polarization, the treatment of Kurds as an ethnic minority, and women in an intensely patriarchal society. Some of these are specific to the Turkish context and serve to build students' cultural competence. Others, like women's issues and minority issues, are universal themes that students can relate to easily, giving them the opportunity to build personal connections with the teaching material. For the second quarter, we decided to adopt The Club, a period drama that presents a very different Istanbul than the one that students become familiar with in the first quarter. The show centers around characters employed at a cosmopolitan European-style nightclub in Istanbul in the 1950s. The protagonist is a middle-aged Sephardic Jewish woman, female character, middle-aged, and a majority of the characters are Jewish, Armenian, and Greek Orthodox. The show deals with the experiences of non-Muslim minorities in Istanbul and their struggles against the growing trend of nationalism and Turkification that took over Turkey in the 1960s and also has parallels with today. And it's an episode in the country's history that was rarely talked about until this show actually aired in 2022. So let's talk about how we incorporated all of this into our curriculum. Beginning in week 2 of the first quarter, week 1 is a little too early. They show up to class and I assign a TV show. No, I just build up the hype a little bit. You're going to watch TV every weekend. They love it. One of them was coming in and just being like, my dad is really concerned because all he sees me do is watching Netflix. So I had to explain to him that I was actually doing homework every Sunday. They had watch parties together. How awesome is that? They were doing homework. So beginning in week 2 of the quarter, students are asked to watch 1 episode of the show each week and complete a worksheet in addition to their regular assignments. So I continue teaching my regular curriculum, my grammar and this and that. This is all supplementary. Every week, we set aside class time to go over parts of these worksheets and have lively discussions about culture. Obviously, at the beginning, these discussions are in English. You can't expect them to talk about what they saw on like day 4 of the elementary language class, but we work up to doing more of that in the target language. The weekly worksheets consist of 4 parts, each serving a distinct purpose. Part 1 is warm-up section with questions about the content of each episode. These basic questions ensure that students watch the episodes regularly and follow the storylines. At the beginning, we present these questions in English. We incorporate more and more Turkish as the students advance throughout the year. All warm-up questions here in the second quarter actually are entirely in Turkish, and the students are expected to answer them also entirely in Turkish. Simple language, but again, they're doing this all in the target language once we move to that level. Part 2 is vocabulary. The exercises consist of, matching, fill in the blank types of questions that increase in complexity as we advance throughout the quarter. The vocabulary includes both basic words that students learn in class and from the textbook, but also new vocabulary from the show that we choose to highlight based on whatever theme is going on. When we were watching The Club one week, one of the vocabulary sections was about entertainment because it was about a new show that they were putting on at the club. So we did vocab, singer, performer, stage, curtain, those things. When preparing these, we made sure that we used names and details pertaining to the show's characters. So in every one of these sentences, you will see names from the show itself to ensure continuity and keep the students engaged in the material. Yes, they're learning grammar, but they're still talking about the people that they've been watching about for weeks. Part 3 is grammar. Here we added some additional grammar exercises, additional to what they normally do in class, that complement the work that they do with the regular material. Each week features brief grammar exercises that highlight what students learn. So if they did past tense, that week, there's going to be a past tense exercise, but also with a focus on the plot and characters from the show. And I'll show you what I have here. This week, they had learned spatial relations, how to describe the location of something with respect to something else. The cat is under the table. We gave them this screenshot from that week's episode, and we told them, describe this, right, with what you learned. Here, it was directions. So we gave them a fake paragraph here, but still about the primary character that fits the plot line of the show. And we said, she describes the route that she takes every day to go from her house to the club. Read this, draw me a basic map. Because it says, take this street, leave the house. When I leave the house, I turn right. And then at the next, intersection, I do this, right? But still very much fitting with the show. Finally, part 3/4 is cultural discussion. This is where we choose to tackle the difficult or controversial issues in the shows. We posed very open-ended questions. This was mostly done in English, but the important thing for me is the cultural competence and the content and not language use in this case. And these required students to analyze and interpret parts of the show a little more closely, maybe do some research on the internet, and connect with their own experiences. In the first example that you see here, we asked them to do research on the Kurdish language. Along the way, they learned, by research, I mean, Google it. Go to Wikipedia. I don't need you to read an academic article, just basic understanding. Along the way, they learned about Kurds, which constitute 20% of Turkey's population. They're an ethnic minority, but they are almost invisible. And how they've been persecuted throughout Turkish history, how they're not allowed to receive education or even name their children in their mother tongue, because there's a character here who is ethnically Kurdish, who hides her identity, presents as Turkish and white, but then at home you see that she speaks Kurdish, right? What is going on here? We've never seen anything like that on Turkish TV before. None of this would even be alluded to in a textbook. But it's 20% of the population of the country. How am I going to ignore this as a fact? So the cultural discussion questions led to lively conversations in class that we conducted in English, so students could learn more about these important issues. And in this section, we also worked with cultural concepts that we encounter in each episode, like taking off shoes and wearing slippers when you enter a Turkish household. Or, what specific foods Turks eat for breakfast. Or the specific practices that surround a person's death. And I'll give you some of these here. These are from 2 different shows, actually. The first one is, a main character dies. What do? And there's a whole extended thing. There's something about food, Sephardic food. How is that different than Turkish? People didn't even know what Sephardic was until the show aired. And I, being a little ambitious, assigned some optional reading, because every once in a while, there's that curious kid who wants to know more. So I put like one 10-page article in there that I put on Canvas. If you want to read about it, here it is. Okay. Another thing here, very basic clothing. This was the clothing unit. So we gave them a screenshot from the club, 1950s. How do people dress? And then we gave them a street scene from today's Istanbul with very basic Turkish, but new vocabulary on clothing. We had them compare these things. Here we get into a little bit, of the political stuff. Again, Greeks, Greek Orthodox as part of Turkish society. I gave them a visual and I told them, go find out about how many Greeks were actually living in Istanbul at the time of your show. How many are there now? Why? Let's talk about it, because it comes up at the end of the show. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to be, Angelica, I'm going to be approximately 90 seconds over time. I know it's going to make you sweat a little bit, I know, but I'll be very quick. So in addition to the weekly worksheets that you saw, we also use details and visuals from the show in our regular teaching materials. So we changed some of the regular things that we give to them and adapted them to the show. And it again created a sense of continuity for the students as they encountered characters and details from the shows throughout the week. We did it in two ways. One here, we designed new materials. This is the unit where they learned about professions and occupations. We gave them these characters. They know them from the show. Column B is words on professions. Column C, locations. Where do these people work? One of them is an actress, and it just says theater. And in column D, they're expected to build a sentence. This person is, I don't know, a psychiatrist. She works in a hospital. That's all they needed to produce. But again, not just a blank piece of paper, but continuity with the show. Another thing that we did, my Fulbrighter did this, and I'm going to be forever grateful to her, was adapt our existing material. So on the left here, you see the original handout. That's from a book, one of the 5 books that I use. And then this is the new one. The exercise is this. They're learning personality adjectives, how to describe someone's personality. And there's a listening exercise. These 2 girls are best friends. They describe one another. They say, well, I'm very outspoken, but she's a little shy, blah, blah, blah. What we ended up doing is we flipped the pictures with the 2 main characters from the show, and we wrote a new text and recorded it based on their characters. I mean, imagine the amount of work. Like, you can't do this on your own. But it worked beautifully instead of just these random people from a random textbook. Okay, let's talk about the outcomes. Was all this worth in the end? The answer is a unanimous yes, both from the instructors and the students. So the addition of a popular TV show and the way we promoted the course helped us increase our enrollment ever so slightly. We didn't go from 5 to 25, but still, there were more students in there. But the better outcome was that we were able to attract a different student profile that we had done before because people were familiar with TV, with Turkish TV. Their mothers were watching things. And they had never considered learning Turkish before, but all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this is something that I actually watch. Or what is my mom talking about? Why is she raving about these things? We noticed a visible increase in a level of active participation and engagement from the students who were completely hooked on the shows, couldn't wait to go home and watch each episode and then come back and discuss it. They had very strong opinions about some characters. We also observed a huge increase in the students' cultural competence. Since they were exposed to a contemporary product from the target culture on a regular basis and observed the day-to-day lives, interactions, and cultural practices of a variety of characters that a textbook could not have given them. And also ended up discussing a number of important and relevant social, cultural, political issues, again, completely non-existent in textbooks. So in the end, this was very rewarding for both the instructors and the students. This quarter, again, second quarter, we did the club on top of this, and we ended up talking about minorities, a very no-no, non-Muslim minorities, very no-no issue. Conclusion. That was a lot, wasn't it? My goal today was really to provide concrete tools and strategies for you for collaborative curriculum design within and across languages. So you don't just have to collaborate with people who teach the same thing as you do, and really share materials that can be easily adapted to different skill levels and context. I hope that by introducing these courses and the fruits of our several collaborations, I was able to provide a pedagogical model that can be easily shared with and applied to different content areas. You don't have to teach about cities, but you can take the same framework if you want, and collaborate with colleagues across the country, across the world, to make your programs more sustainable in the long run. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, that's a lot. Somebody moderating questions, or should I? All right, cool.
Well, Oya, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, for sharing all of your materials. I think this is a great introduction to the conference, wonderful ideas for collaboration, for engaging our students in particular, giving us hope that we can increase language enrollments and truly speak to our students' interests. So we know we're already at time. If anybody in Zoom land has questions, please put them in chat and we will get those answered first, because everybody else will have the opportunity to, of course, speak with Oya during the reception. But I do think we have time for maybe a few questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will bring the microphone to you. Here is Magda.
I have to leave, so I wanted to ask this right away. Thank you so much for this amazing talk. I learned so much. I do teach a film course as well, and I prepare my own curriculum and all of that. So one question I have for you is, how did you deal with getting the series and copyright and making it available? How did you go around about that?
That's the question that I get every time, and we just flat out ask students to have a Netflix subscription. Everybody has one, or their parents have one. But what we ended up doing also is we put like a tiny little thing in the syllabus and said, if for any reason, which you do not have to disclose to us, you are unable to get a subscription, please come talk to us. And our department can subsidize it, because I don't even know what it is, like $15 or something, and it's just 1 quarter. That's something that we can do. Again, one advantage of teaching elective, right? You can't do this in a Spanish course. You can't subsidize all those student subscriptions. But in a course with 6 students, one of them will come out, you can do that. That was really the only thing.
Yeah, but you know how are the shows always available on Netflix? Sometimes they take them out.
These are always available because they're new. That's the thing. They were aired in the last 2 to 3 years, and they're just there, and they're extremely popular. So they're not going away. So that's my class.
So yeah, I can do. That's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, with film, I understand. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, and actually to jump in here, there is a resource, Lumiere, out of Berkeley, that makes films available, and it's a complex process, but if the institution has and it's tricky with TV shows. It's easier for film.
That's the problem.
If
We have
the
the same
university-
thing. Yeah, we have the same thing at Northwestern with our film center. They can make anything available to stream through Canvas even.
Correct, yeah.
But they can't really do it with TV shows.
Yeah,
But
unless they have been released on DVD.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
But the problem with Turkish TV shows that are not Netflix productions is that they are approximately 22 to 23 episodes a season, and each episode is 3 hours. I'm not kidding you. It's a life investment. I cannot assign those things for a class. And also there are, like multiple scenes of like 8 minutes each of people staring at each other meaningfully. That does not have any cultural component. Well, I mean, I guess that's a cultural component. Or language. So I had to go with Netflix because it was good production, 45 minutes tops, short seasons, and it wasn't, it was innovative. The issues were new and important. But I understand that the financial concern is a concern, and this is the question I get every time I present this material. Angelica. Oh, okay.
Hi, Oya. Thank you very much. I'm Bijong. I teach Korean, and I attended the same workshop series in Chicago with Banu and together. Nice to see you. It was really interesting and an inspiring talk. And then you made me to learn, take your Turkish course.
And I have a very easy time being a Korean speaker.
Yeah, I really want my students to take course, like increase enrollment as well. But I'd like to know that if is there any like a complaint from students that they need to spend a lot of time watching even if it is a fun like episodes of the like a famous TV show, but they have to spend a lot of time watching itself is also taking a lot of time and also working on the like worksheets. It takes a lot of time and then I'd like to know how you like go over the like worksheets together with students in class like a following Monday. Do you have like a everyday class or Monday, Wednesday, Friday class
We
or?
have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. Yeah.
Okay, then you go over. Okay, I mean, you have like a Monday class as dedicated
This is
to
Monday
like a
morning.
Monday class for the dedicated for the like about the movie. So sometimes you speak in English and then you
Yeah.
go.
And it's not the entire class time. We try to really squeeze this. I mean, our classes are also weird because they're 75 minutes, 3 times a week, not 70, not 80, not 90, 75 minutes. So we really try to do about 20 minutes tops of this first thing on Monday morning. And because that's what we do, the students really got used to watching this on Sunday afternoons or Sunday evenings, and it's fresh in their minds and they come to class. We haven't had any complaints about assigning additional work because what ended up happening is that the students came to the class specifically to do this. They knew that this is what they were going to have to do, right? And no, because it was only 45 minutes once a week, they never really complained. One of them actually couldn't stop watching, so she ended up watching 2, 3 episodes at a time, and I had to stop her from giving spoilers every week because the other students wouldn't do it.
Yeah, right. But if you know that Korean drama series is very long,
Yes.
16 episodes,
They-
at least, and they are like
Find
1
something on
hour.
Netflix. I'm telling you,
Yeah,
they
so
have
I
very
need to find
specific
something new.
restrictions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then I really like your way to how to integrate the movie and then your class curriculum as well. It's closely weaved, so everything is very engaging because they already saw some scenes from movie, but they are taught in class in the class activities. It is really excellent activities.
That part worked really well, but again, it's an incredibly time-consuming thing to do because you just constantly have to take screenshots of things, right? And I don't have time to watch all of those things very closely. I've watched these shows when they came out, but I can't really like pause every 10 seconds to do it. So you do need someone to do it for you.
Thank you.
Hi, Abby Cohn here at Cornell in Linguistics in the Southeast Asia program. One thing that strikes me about Netflix that's so clever as compared to using film is that it's already gotten a stamp of approval for an international audience.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, when you use other kinds of materials, you as an instructor have to bridge. And a whole lot of that bridging has already been done by virtue of it, being oriented in that way. So I
That's
think
an
it's
excellent
really, really clever.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's so hard. Like you have to do layers and layers, and I have to say, I know in some spheres this is, not well received, but I love the idea that you're doing Turkish TV with subtitles, you're doing a novel in English, because you're allowing students to engage so much more deeply with the material than they otherwise would. And it's not at the expense of the language.
No, they're doing the language, they are still doing the language the way that they would have done it. But my textbooks are dry when it comes to culture. They're dry. And I can't just send them away just having learned how to, build perfectly phrased sentences with correct grammar. Sometimes I don't actually care about that. But what I care about is that when they go to Turkey, and some of them will, it's going to be familiar. They're going to know what they're looking at. And that bridging the culture gap was actually a great point. And I'll give you a very good example of that. In the first show, Ethos, in 2 episodes at the very beginning, the primary character is a cleaning lady, and she works in the house of this bachelor womanizer who works in finance, whatever, like super fancy apartment. She walks in the door, the camera zooms to her feet, She takes off her outside shoes, reaches into a cabinet, takes out slippers, puts them on, and then the camera zooms back out and she continues. That's a very specific thing to do. For a Turkish audience, that would not have been necessary to show at all. That's what we all do. But that's what we picked up on this, and that's what we explained to them. What do you do when you walk into a Turkish household? You can't walk in with shoes. You have to wear slippers, right? So you're absolutely right that those little clues are there. You just have to catch them and introduce them.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and then walk us through your pedagogical preparation. I have a question, and I don't know, what do you think about using like TV commercials? I'm teaching Thai, and one thing that is like a very struggle for elementary students, because Thai people, they tend to omit pronouns when they're talking. So sometimes it's very confusing. Whether are you talking to me or you mention about the third person or something like that. So, but I guess because the workload as well. So I'm just thinking, you know, I did test that. I mean, incorporate some of the TV commercials, you know, I showed it from time to time, and then I asked them to just answer simple questions, but use basic structure that we learn in different units. But I mean, do you think that it's still usable? Or
Oh, absolutely, yes. The only reason why I don't use it, and I've actually wanted to do it, is because I don't have access to like daily Turkish TV because I don't watch it and I don't have the time to collect the material. But if you do, please go ahead, and I'll give you an example. And this is always just going to be stuck in my head because it was brilliant. Thomas Garza of Texas Austin, another inimitable language instructor, phenomenal, did this in a training once, and he just showed a Modelo beer commercial in Spanish. Do you remember this? I think you were in the room for this too. And it's just like a, you know, short film. Something is happening. It looks like a Western. There are like horses galloping and people. Something is happening and there's conversation. I don't speak Spanish. Half of the room that he was, you know, training was not speaking Spanish. But he actually devised a task for us in such a way that we knew what we were looking at. And we just, you know, it was in English, yes, but like we produced meaning from that. And I think it's a great way, if you have access to commercials, use them. But use them in a way that you can contextualize them and don't just be like, what pronoun do you hear in here? Like, do something that they can actually connect to a context, because that's what's going to stick with them.
And actually, just going to plug this, our November speaker as part of the LRC speaker series is Tom Garza.
Yes.
So if you want to hear more from him, for those of you who are on campus, you know where to go. For everybody else, we do live stream on Zoom.
He's speaking at Northwestern tomorrow morning, and I'm missing.
I just wanted to follow up on the thing about the commercial. When you think about it, though, when you do commercials, it's every time new content, new this, new that.
Exactly.
Where when
This
you
is
watch
an investment.
but when you
Yeah.
watch a series, they get to know the people, they get to know the vocabulary, they get to predict what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So, like, even though it's a time commitment and they get engaged, there's a lot of redundancy that smooths out as they watch episode after episode after episode.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we will take one last question, and then again, we will remind you to follow all of us over to the LRC for the reception.
Hold on to your questions. Come find me at the reception. I'm happy to talk more.
I have a kind of a two-part question. One is, do you have data on how the students progressed on standards? Let's say the OPI, or let's say something else pre and post this, because it would be interesting. I'm sure some skills zoomed ahead and some skills were slower. And do you have an idea of how much you covered from your old curriculum in comparison, just seeing what the differences were?
Yeah, so I don't actually have concrete data. We only did it this past academic year for the first time. We piloted this, but I'm doing it again starting next week. So I can actually start watching for this very specifically. I didn't do it the first time. So I can watch for, what skills are advancing. Cultural competence, 100%.
Right, of course. Yeah, but your cities course is
Mhm.
third year, right? They have to do first and second year.
This is end of second year. I don't have third year actually.
Oh.
That's the problem. So I had to really condense my second year curriculum into 2 quarters. And then this is the third quarter at the end. I'm not teaching anything new in that, obviously, I mean, they're learning content, but grammar-wise, what they learn or vocabulary in the first 2 quarters, and then, the first year comes back up there for them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And remind me, your other question, the second question was?
How much should we cut out?
Oh, how much should I cut out? Oh, yeah. So in terms of the actual content, I didn't really cut out anything in first year. Elementary Turkish, we're still covering everything, the same number of units every quarter as we would have done. There is a little less maybe practice of the same material because we're dedicating more time to this, but we ended up covering the exact same material that we would have. I didn't change anything. In the second year, what I ended up cutting out were more thematic units. So it's unfortunately a little grammar heavy because we have to go cover some advanced grammar in the second quarter. But then, like I always tell them, just like, hang in there because next quarter is going to be awesome. Once you learn this, you'll be able to do all of these things. That's the only compromise that I had to make. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, please help me in thanking Oya for this invitation. And at this point, maybe the Cornell people can raise their hands real quick if you are walking over to the LRC. So find a friend if you're unfamiliar with Cornell's campus. And please enjoy conversation, food, and drinks. And we look forward to continuing these conversations around collaboration. So thank you.